Triangle JKL is congruent to triangle STU. Complete the congruent statement. Reminder that the order is showing you what parts are congruent. So just because these are JK, first two letters here, so we're going to look at the first two letters there. So JK should be congruent to ST. Here, triangle PQR is congruent to triangle GHI. Q is the middle letter, so H is the middle letter, so angle H. Triangle DEF is congruent to triangle XYZ. F is the third letter, so Z is the third letter, so it should say angle Z. It's another triangle congruency statement, but now they've changed the name of the second triangle, so you have to adjust the name of the first triangle. So YXZ was middle to first to last. So we go middle K to first, which is J, and then to last, which is L. Alright, so when we rename it this way, parts should still match up. Like J was congruent to X here, so down here X and J are both the middle letters, so they're still congruent. Up top K was congruent to Y, down here Y and K are first letters, and then Z and L should match up to the Z and L that were up here. Same idea as the last question. Triangle STU, they've reworded it or renamed it to UST. So triangle ABC needs to be renamed C. It's going to be the first letter. S and A match up, so A's got to be the last or second letter. And then T is final, so this has got to be B. So triangle CAB. Complete the two-column proof. Says segment HJ is parallel to segment PW. Angle H is congruent to angle P. Segment HJ is congruent to segment PW. Segment HW is congruent to segment PJ. Prove the two triangles are congruent. The one thing you need to realize is that there is one set of parallel lines here. There are not two sets, and that's something that a lot of people were missing. This line there and this line there are parallel. Those are the only two. So they tell us HJ is congruent to PW, HW is congruent to PJ. That's given. And then they use the reflexive property. Remember, whenever we see two triangles that share a side, we want to identify that side. So it's JW and WJ. Okay. Angle H congruent to angle P. Well, that was part of my given as well. So given. HJ parallel to PW, another part of my given. And now the part that comes up with the parallel lines. HJW, which is that angle right there, and PWJ, which is that angle right there. They're congruent because we have that line parallel cut by that transversal. So this angle here and that angle there are alternate interior angles. So that's how those two angles are congruent. So we'll draw that in, come down here and say it's because of alternate interior angles. Okay, now if those two angles here are congruent, these two angles up here are congruent, that means that the third angles, that angle there and that angle there, also have to be congruent. So we'll name those. See how the names those. HWJ. Okay, so JWH, same thing, JWH, and then WJP. Okay, so it's got to be those two, third angles there. Now, because I've shown all 6 parts congruent to all 6 parts, remember we did show that, we can say down here that the two triangles are congruent by the definition of congruent triangles. Here, this is focusing on what we know about congruent triangles. If these two triangles are congruent, then corresponding parts are congruent. So angle A and angle D, they correspond. They're both the first letter. Okay, so they are congruent. So their measurements, those two things, should be equal. So say x plus 38 is equal to 2x. I'll subtract x from both sides. X is 38. Okay. Now it wants measure of angle measure of angle A. So I'll take 38 plus 38, which is 76. And then if those two angles are congruent, that has to be 76. What does the phrase CPCTC stand for? Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Right there. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, so what one additional pair of items must you show or need to be congruent in order to prove the following two triangles congruent by side, angle, side? So we need an angle in between two sides. Well, right now they give me that angle and that angle. That's explicitly provided. Implicitly provided is that BD is congruent to itself. Alright, so the final thing that I would need for side, angle, side to exist would be that angle there congruent to that angle there. So I'm going to say angle ABD congruent to angle CDB. It's got to be option C here. Alright, here they want us to do the same thing, still using side, angle, side. Alright, so what we would need, they explicitly tell me that AC is congruent to CE. We implicitly know that that angle and that angle are congruent because they're vertical angles. So that's what our picture gives us. The next thing we would want to show is that that segment is congruent to that segment. So if we're looking at our options, it's BC and DC. They have to be congruent. So that one. Okay, now they want to know, this is the same question we saw on number 9, but now they want to use side, side, side. So we know explicitly AB is congruent to CD. Implicitly we know that BD is congruent to BD. So to show side, 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 the final thing we would need to know is that side congruent to that side. And that's AD congruent to BC. We need to know that one. It says name the postulate you would use to prove the triangle is congruent. Because that angle and that angle are congruent. Side, angle, side. Complete the two-column proof. EA is congruent to CD. Segment AB is congruent to segment DB. And we know B is the midpoint of CE. Okay, so this stuff here they give you is given. Alright, now because this point here, B is the midpoint of CE. We look down here, they say CB, that segment there, is congruent to that segment there because B is the midpoint of this red segment. So midpoints always give you two congruent segments. So CB is going to be congruent to BE. EB. And now the triangles are going to be congruent because I got 3 sides in this one, 3 sides in the one on the right. So it's going to be side, side, side. Okay, we want to show that these two triangles are congruent by side, angle, side. So what other information do I need to know? I need to know that side there is congruent to that side there. By side, angle, side, that would be the information we need. So I'm going to say GL congruent to NM. Says as needed because the congruent angles need to be included between the two corresponding congruent sides. With this particular question, it says would you use SSS or SAS to prove the triangle is congruent? We would use SAS. Okay, so option A there. Again, this question for me, side, angle, side, side, angle, side. So we'd say side, angle, side, SAS. So it says if the triangles shown to the right are congruent, write a congruent statement and give a reason why they are congruent. Okay, they are congruent. We got RH and WP, HD and PT, and then segment RD, segment WT. They're congruent. Okay, and it's going to be side, side, side. So we'll say triangle HRD, HRD. Notice we travel down one side and then 2 sides to name that. Or one hash, one tick down 2 ticks. So H to R, R to D. So we name the second one P to W, down 1 hash mark, and then W to T, down 2 hash marks. So it's the same exact pattern. These are polygons that have congruent corresponding parts. They're matching sides and angles. That's congruent polygons. The angle that is formed by two sides of a triangle, angle 1, in respect to the blue sides of the following triangle, that's referred to as an included angle. A side of a triangle that is between two angles, the red side in respect to angle 1 and angle 2, that's called an included side. It says, given the following polygons with the given congruent statement, find the missing variables. It says, given A, B, C, D, E is congruent to polygon X, W, M, N, P, in the following expressions, AB equals 2x minus 10, CD equals 4z plus 15, D equals 15, XW equals 5x minus 43, and MN equals 7z minus 45. Find the following distances. Draw a picture is not necessary, but it may be useful. If I was going to draw a picture, I'll do this two ways. I'll draw the picture first, and then we'll go and do it without the picture. But A, B, C, D, E. Okay, so I'm going to have 5 vertices. A, B, C, D, and E. And however you want to draw it, doesn't matter as long as there's 5 vertices, so there's 5 segments. Okay, and they tell me that AB is 2x minus 10, CD is 4z plus 15, and DE is 15. Okay. Now, the reason I'm drawing a picture is because it's easy for me to show what's corresponding, which parts are matching up. So I'm going to draw this triangle or this polygon here, but redraw it so it's exactly like this one. Okay, so A and X have to be the same vertex, corresponding. Then we're going to go to W, so W has to match to B. And then we'll go down to M, which has to match with C. And then N has to match with D. And then P will match with E. Okay, draw that polygon. So they're saying that these two polygons are congruent. All right. I say XW is 5x minus 43. 5x minus 43. And they tell me MN is 7z minus 45. 7z minus 45. Okay. Now, because I'm able to draw this picture, I can see what parts are corresponding. That part corresponds to that part. So to solve for x, it's 2x minus 10 equals 5x minus 43. Subtract 2x from both sides, add 43 to both sides, x ends up being 11. Okay, if x is 11, we'll have 22 minus 10, so the side becomes 12. So AB is 12. That means XW is also 12. Okay, now 4z plus 15, that should match up with 7z minus 45. So 4z plus 15 equals 7z minus 45. Subtract 4z from both sides, add 45 to both sides, z equals 20. Come back, if z is 20, then 4 times 20 is 80, plus 15 is 95. So that's 95, that's got to be 95. And then they also tell me that ED is 15, so PN has to be 15. I think it's so much easier with a picture to just show the size. If I were to take this picture here and lay it on top of this one, which markings lay on top of which markings, which expressions lay on top of which expressions, and that then gives you your equations. Not necessarily the only way you can do it. You can do it without a picture and look at the name and say, well, AB, first 2 letters here, and then XW are the first 2 letters there, so I'm going to take AB and XW and set them equal to each other. Okay, then we can look at this and say, well, BC, they don't talk about BC down here, so let's not worry about CD. Be the 3rd and 4th letter. Okay, so I come over here, find the third and fourth letter, M and N. So I'm going to take CD and set that equal to MN. Alright, and then the last one is DE. It's 15, last two letters there. And NP are the last two letters there. So DE and NP both have to be the same thing. DE is 15 and NP has to be 15. Again, I think it's useful here to draw a picture. Doesn't matter what your triangles look like as long as when you name them, their corresponding parts match up. So PQR, P and S are going to match up, T and Q match up, and then R and U match up. They say angle P is 3x plus 21. They say angle S is 4x plus 16, and angle Q is 7x plus 5. They want you to find x and then the measure of angle U. Okay. While looking at things, the relationship that I know is that those two angles there, because they're corresponding, they're congruent triangles, those two things must be equal. So 3x plus 21 equals 4x plus 16. I'll subtract 3x from both sides. I'll subtract 16 from both sides to get x to be 5. Now if x is 5, this angle here is 15 plus 21, which is going to be 36. Also makes this angle 36. Then this angle down here, 7 times 5 is 35, plus 5 is 40. So that angle is 40, making this angle 40. Now if they want angle U, which is that angle there, I'm going to take 180 minus 36 and 40, so minus 76, and that's going to give me 104. So measure of angle U, 104 degrees. Here it says triangle DER is congruent to, okay, we went naming DER, we went down 3 sides with 3 hash marks and then 1 hash mark. So here I need to go down 3 and then 1. So go to N to O to M. Okay, it says now by using the system of equations along with the following information, solve for x and y. It says angle M is 60. So this is 60 up here. They tell me that the measure of R is 2x plus 2y. And E is 50. And that O is x plus 3y. Alright, now, the way we name these DER and NOM. DER, NOM. So now we know the angle R, which is the last letter here, and angle M, they should be the same. They should be equal. So M was 60, R was 2x plus 2y. So we'll take 2x plus 2y equals 60. We also know that E, which is the second letter, and O, which is the second letter, they have to be the same. So I'll take x plus 3y equals 50. Okay. Set up a system here, because they both have two variables, two equations. I want to try to get my x's to cancel, so I'll multiply this bottom one by -2, becomes -2x, minus 6y equals -100. So alter that second equation, becomes that. Now I'm going to add straight down. The x's go away. I'll get -4y. That's going to equal -40. So y then is 10. Okay. If y is 10, I'm going to plug it back up into this equation here, and I'm going to get 2x plus 20 is equal to 60. 2x then is equal to 40. X then is 20. So y was 10, x was 20. Y is 10, x is 20. The next question then asks you to, the next part of this asks you to find the measure of angle D, which is this angle here. Okay. Well, right now we know this angle to be 50, and now that this is 2 times x, so 2 times 20. So 2 times 20 plus 2 times y being 10. Okay, so that's 40 plus 20 is 60. So we got 60 and 50. So that means angle D, that adds up to, what, 110? So angle D then has to be 70 in order for those three angles to add to 180. The other part, I guess we didn't talk about this one. They named this triangle ERD. If they go ERD, they're going from E down 1 and then 2. So I go from down 1 and then down 2 would tell me go from O to M to N. This one would be OMN. These two triangles have these 3 points. We want to see if they're congruent. So we're going to find the distance of segment AB. Maybe if you draw a picture, it'll be easier for you to see which parts we have to deal with. But you know, AB, you're going to need BC, distance of BC, and then distance for segment AC. Those are the 3 for the first triangle. Then the 3 for the second triangle are going to be distance DE, distance DF, and then distance EF. Remember the distance formula is x2 minus x1, quantity squared, plus y2 minus y1, quantity squared. Remember, it doesn't matter the order you subtract your x's, doesn't matter the order you subtract your y's, because you're going to square them, they're always going to become positive numbers. So as we do these, I'm going to always try to subtract the larger number, or the smaller number from the larger number. Okay, so when I do AB, I'm going to go 5 minus 2. Gives me 3 squared, I get 9. Then when I do the y's, 9 minus 5 is 4, square it, I get 16. So that's the square root of 25. Now I told you not to simplify these. I'm then going to do BC. So B and C, so I'm going to subtract the x's. 7 minus 5 is 2, square it, I get 4. And then I'll subtract the y's. 9 minus 2 is 7, square it, I get 49. This gives me a radical 53. Don't simplify it. Then we do AC. Subtract my x's, so 7 minus 2 is 5, squared is 25. And now my y's, 5 minus 2 is 3, squared is 9, gives me a radical 34. Now when you type these in, I don't know how many people missed this or did it wrong, you have to add the radical part. Okay, that's part of the answer, that's notation. You always need to add that in. Typing in 25 is a different number than typing in radical 25. Okay, so make sure you know that. I went back and I gave points for people that mess this up. Next time I'm not going to do that. Now when we deal with DE, I'm going to do the same process. D and E, subtract my x's, and I get 7 and 4, so it's 3 squared is 9. And now my y's, negative 7 minus a negative 3. Negative 7 minus a negative 3 is negative 7 plus 3, so it gives me negative 4. But when I square that, I get positive 16, which then is radical 25. D and F. 9 minus 4 is 5, squared is 25. And then I'm going to have 0 minus a negative 3 is positive 3, squared is 9, gives me a radical 34. And then EF, 9 minus 7 is 2, squared is 4. And then 0 minus a negative 7 is positive 7, squared is 49. And then I get radical 53. So EF, radical 53, DF, radical 34, and then DE is radical 25. Now you see that these parts, these triangles are congruent, okay? Because all these 3 distances are showing up down here. So they are congruent by side, side, side. Now, in order to name them correctly, I'm just going to draw a quick picture here. AB, I'm going to go AB, that's radical 25. So when AB is radical 25, then DE also is radical 25. Now BC was radical 53, so put C there, radical 53. Now which one was down? EF was radical 53, so it's got to be F. So radical 53, that makes this radical 34 and radical 34. So now, in my options down here where it says triangle ABC can go to triangle DEF, ABC to DEF, corresponding parts, that matches up, so it's got to be option A. Can't be B, because that's side angle side. Can't be E. Alright, so these are just incorrect ways of naming those two triangles. It's got to be option A. When you do this, pay attention. I think these flip around for each person. A, B, C, D, E are different. They're in different order. Okay. Here it says name the two triangles that are congruent. We know these two triangles are congruent by side, side, side. So they go X to Z to O. So we need to go to Y, Z, O. So triangle Y, Z, O. So the triangles are congruent by the side, side, side postulate. The next part they ask, okay, they want you to find X and Y first. When I look at these, okay, measure of angle X and measure of angle Y. Those two angles are corresponding. So we'll say 2x plus 2y equals 4y plus 4. And then they say xzo, which is this angle here, and yzo, which is that angle there. Well, they are corresponding as well. So I'll say x plus 3y equals 50. A couple things you could do here. You can do a system of equations if you wanted, or you can do substitution. I'll go ahead and do substitution this route because this is a 1x. So I'm just going to take this equation and alter it so it becomes x is equal to 50 minus 3y. Those two equations are there at the bottom. They're the same. This one's just solved for x now. So I'm going to go take that back up in this original equation I came up with. Instead of putting an x, I'm going to put 50 minus 3y. So it becomes 50 minus 3y plus 2y equals 4y plus 4. So we get 100 minus 6y plus 2y equals 4y plus 4. This is 100 minus 4y equals 4y plus 4. Add 4y to both sides, subtract 4 from both sides, and getting 96 is equal to 8y. Y then ends up being 12. Well, if y is 12, I can come up here and solve for x now. X is 50 minus 3 times 12. Well, 3 times 12 is 36, so 50 minus 36, x is 14. So y is 12, x is 14. The next part, they want you to find measure of angle x. Okay, so measure of angle x is equal to 2 times 14 plus 2 times 12. So that's 28, 24. It's got to be 52 degrees. Okay. The next part, they want to know what is YZO. YZO is going to be x, which was 14, plus 3 times 12, which is 36. So 14 plus 36 is 50. And that should make sense because YZO and XZO are congruent. Okay. And the final part was find YOZ. Well, now YOZ is this angle here. We don't have any expressions for that angle. But right now, we know that this one, YZO, that was 50. We knew that angle Y and angle X are both 52. So that's 102 degrees. So this one must be 78 degrees. So So angle YZO is 70, or YOZ is 78 degrees. So given the congruent statement, triangle BLO, congruent to triangle VQR, identify all the parts that you know to be congruent. Let's start with the angles. Angle B, congruent to angle V. Angle OL, congruent to angle Q. And angle O, congruent to angle R. Then I'm going to go to the sides and say BL, congruent to VQ. LO is congruent to QR, and then BO is congruent to VR. Make sure you just go ahead, and once you have that list down, go ahead and mark down each one of these that's satisfied there, and should be 6 things you mark off. If you have any questions about any problems on this quiz, make sure you do not hesitate to come and ask me.